He was not a chief, not a warrior, not even a wealthy man. But when he spoke, the land listened. His name was Mugo wa Kibiru, a seer of the Kikuyu. Long before the first railway track touched this soil, Mugo saw it all in a dream. He said they would come from the sunrise, their skins red, their eyes empty. They would bring fire in their pockets, ride iron snakes, and take the land. The elders laughed, but they would not laugh for long. Before the white man came, the Kikuyu people lived in rhythm with the land. They were farmers, herders, craftsmen. They sang to the rain. They danced under the moon. They believed that a man's wealth was in his goats, his land, and his children. The forest was sacred. The elders were wise. The mountains, like Kirinyaga, were holy. Each homestead raised its own food. No one went hungry. Disputes were settled by the council of men and women. Children were taught to respect the soil, the spirits, and their ancestors. But in the village of Kigumo, there lived a man, unlike any other. He did not speak often, but when he did, even the birds fell silent. They called him Mugo wa Kibiru, the seer, the chosen one. Some say he was born under a tree. Others say he came from the mountain itself. He walked alone, ate little, slept under the sky. They say he could hear what the trees whispered, that he dreamed of things not yet seen, and then, one day, he spoke a prophecy. He warned of people from the sunrise, with red skins, hair like lion manes. They would carry fire in their pockets, ride iron snakes that breathe smoke, take the land, enslave the people. He said, they will smile with sugar on their tongues, but carry chains behind their backs. The elders laughed. The forest has confused him, they said. Even the chief dismissed him. There is no such man from the sun, they claimed, and no snake made of iron. Only a few listened, and those who did were mocked with him. Mugo returned to the forest and waited. Then one day, they came. At first, they came quietly. Men with pale skin and strange hats. They arrived from the coast, walking with steel rods, sketchbooks, and wagons pulled by beasts the Kikuyu had never seen. They spoke in tongues, gave out gifts, soap, beads, mirrors. Some even came with books they said were holy. They smiled, just like Mugo said. Then came the iron snake. It tore through the hills. The forests screamed. Rivers were cut. Trees fell like warriors in battle. The elders stood on the ridges and watched the machine breathe smoke, their mouths dry, their hearts trembling. The prophecy had risen, and still, many refused to believe. The British began to claim land, first with paper, then with guns. They named it a protectorate, but they were not protecting anyone. Hut taxes were introduced. Those who refused were whipped. Men forced to work on roads they would never use. Women humiliated. The same land that once gave freely now belonged to strangers. Only now did they begin to remember the words of Mugo wa Kibiru. He said, they will bring fire in their pockets, guns. They will enslave you with smiles, taxes, and treaties. They will ride snakes that breathe smoke. The railway, the madman from Kigumo, was right. The British chose new chiefs, ones who obeyed, divided families, forced clans to turn on each other. Some Kikuyu men wore uniforms, arrested their own brothers. Others were given jobs to silence their shame with coins. The sacred trees were cut. Rituals were banned. The drums of the highlands were muted. And Mugo? He walked into the forest and never returned. Some say he became one with the fig tree. Others say he sleeps beneath the earth, waiting to rise when the land needs him again. But one thing is certain. He was the prophet they ignored, until it was too late. The land changed, but not in a way the Kikuyu had ever known. Rites of passage were interrupted. Sacred groves were fenced off. Songs once sung by fire were now forbidden. Where elders once sat under the Mugumo tree, foreign priests now preached. Children began to speak another tongue, not Kikuyu, not even Swahili, but the tongue of those who came from the sunrise. The drums were silenced, the offerings were mocked, and those who once laughed at Mugo now wept in silence. They remembered, but it was too late. Some elders could no longer look their sons in the eye. The people whispered, "If only we had listened, if only we had prepared." But the prophecy had passed, the tree had fallen, and shame grew like weeds in the soil of their silence. Years passed. Children born into chains grew restless. They began to remember Mugo wa Kibiru, his visions, his voice. They said, "He warned us, we failed him, but we will rise for him, from the forests of Nyeri to the caves of Mount Kenya." Whispers turned into songs, songs turned into oaths, and rebellion was born. But not all remembered him with pride. Some elders removed his name from stories. They erased him from the praise songs, from the chants, because remembering him meant remembering their guilt. He had warned them, and they chose to laugh, but the prophecy never died. It lived in fire, in trees, in silence. It lived in every Kikuyu child who asked, "Who was Mugo wa Kibiru, and why did no one listen?" They tried to forget him, but Mugo's words found their way into lullabies. Warnings murmured by grandmothers as they stirred porridge by firelight. Beware the men who smile too much. Beware the chain hidden beneath kindness. Sometimes there are no words, only the rustling of leaves, the distant cry of a hornbill, the quiet breathing of an old man sitting in shame. Mugo sat like this many times, watching, listening. His silence was not emptiness. It was a language only the land could hear. A boy once saw him beneath the Mugumo tree, motionless, eyes closed, as if praying to something unseen. When asked what he was doing, he replied, "I am letting the forest speak." Elders sat in the village square, eyes low. Some had once mocked Mugo. Others had simply stayed silent when they should have spoken. Now they watched the iron snake tear through the land, and their silence tasted like ash. Women walked to the river, carried pots, but they carried something heavier, memory, the kind that cannot be shared aloud. A mother from Kigumo once whispered, "I saw him when I was a girl. He passed our homestead like wind." My own mother bowed her head when he walked by. I never understood why, until the soldiers came. An old man, before he died, confessed. We laughed at him. We said the sun had burnt his mind. But the truth is, we feared him. He spoke of things we could not control. It's easier to mock a warning than to obey it. A child born in the time of chains said, "Who was Mugo wa Kibiru? Was he real?" His grandmother placed a hand on his chest. He was as real as this heartbeat, and just as ignored. Mugo was not just a man of visions, he was a man of the in-between, between soil and spirit, between time and timelessness. They say the wind brought him messages, that the roots of trees whispered in his dreams. He never married, never built a home, because his home was the forest. His bride was the silence. When asked how he saw the future, he said, "I do not see. I remember what has not yet happened." Some claimed he ate only leaves from sacred trees. Others swore they saw him speak to animals, not with words, but with stillness. He was a prophet not because he wanted to be, but because the land demanded it. And now, the land turns its gaze to us. You, me, those of us who inherit the stories and the silence. If a prophet came today, barefoot, wild-haired, speaking of iron snakes and fire in pockets, would we listen, or would we film him with our phones, scroll past his warning, mock him with emojis, laugh in comment sections? Mugo asked nothing for himself, only that we remember. Prepare. Protect what cannot be replaced. But now, we build malls where sacred groves once stood. We pave roads over memory. We trade wisdom for convenience. Do we not walk the same path as those who once laughed? Under that fig tree in Thika, the wind still shifts. Some say Mugo sleeps there, beneath the roots. Others say he waits for another to rise, not to predict, but to remind, because the land remembers. And those who listen might still hear his voice. Listen.